Good morning. Today we're going to discuss strings. We're going to see some string operations which are going to help you in NLPs and make you industry ready. So let's begin. First, we look at string capitalize function. Now you may have a string with some capitals and some lowercase letters. So the capitalize function will return a string with the first letter capitalized and all other characters lowercased. Let's take a look. We got a string. Binod is the new trend. You can see that B is a small case start to the sentence. We got a capital S. New and trend are also beginning with capitals, and even the R here and the S here in the middle of the sentence are capitals. So this can be a problem when we are trying to match strings where they may be lowercase and uppercase mixed, and you may not be able to find an exact match. So we run this sentence, this code, capitalize string is equal to string, use the dot operator and get the capitalize function or capitalize method of the string data type. Let's run this. So you can see the old string is the same one that we have here, and the capitalized string is now in a proper format. We can also use numericals in this. So if we say 1 is an operator and we invoke the method, then note that the first 1 is not going to be influenced. Let's run this. So 1 remains as such, but the other letters where there are alphabets have been corrected, and this is now a properly capitalized sentence. Now let's talk about string center function. Now center function helps to return a padded string. So we can use any specified character to pad up. So let us say we are using spaces, which is the default, and then spaces will add X number of spaces to either side. So if our string is Binod is awesome, we use string center, give it a number of characters 50, and then we run it. So you can see that we have created some extra spaces over here, and the string that we had originally now comes into the center. This can be used for display purposes to improve our display. We can also use something like string center 24 and use an asterisk as a argument, and then this is the character it's going to be filled. So we are using asterisks here and on this side also, and Binod is awesome comes to the center. Now we talk about string casefold function. So we have seen above that how we can capitalize a string. We can also use functions to make the whole string lowercase or uppercase. Now casefold is a function which works something like a lowercase function, only it is a more powerful function than lowercase. So the output is that it's going to return a folded string, case folded string, which means that every character in the string is going to be forced into a lowercase character. Now let us look at this string. Binod is awesome, and when we run casefold, we get all of the letters as lowercase letters. Now you have to remember that whenever we are running a string function, we do not modify the original string, and that's because, as you know, Python has a string as an immutable kind of a variable. So strings themselves cannot be modified. However, we can always reassign, and that more or less serves the same purpose. Now you can also have a look at how casefold works in other languages or characters which are not familiar to you. So for example, a character such as this one, a beta, might unfold to a double S, which is the way it internally works. Now if you use a normal lowercase function, this is not going to change, but casefold is more powerful, and therefore it's going to force it to go into a double S, which is the internal representation of this. So let's take a look. So we see that first string and second string are exactly the same once we apply the casefold. So we are using a if statement here to see whether the truth values on both sides are the same or not, and the output it gives us is that both strings are equal. So once you have applied the casefold, they are equal, which means then again you can also compare the strings when you're using a natural language processing software. Now we come to string count function. Count method of the string returns the number of occurrences of a given substring in the main string. So if you want to find a name, for example, in a sentence or something else also, we can use this function, and it will tell you how many times it has occurred. Now this can be useful in NLP algorithms where you want to have a count of the tokens. Let's see how it works with this setting. So we have a string called Binod is awesome, isn't it? And we are trying to look for substring is. Now we can see the substring is over here. Binod is awesome. So what do you think will happen when we run the count? Let's see. We should get 1, right? But we are getting 2. Now why is this happening? Why do we get 2 over here? We have is, but we also have isn't, and is part of this isn't. So we are looking for substring. Now remember, Python doesn't understand what is and isn't implies. It just looks for a match in the characters. So it's going to find 2 instances of is and going to return the subcount as 2. So that's something you have to be careful about when you're looking for a substring. And let's take one more example. We are trying to find I in Python is awesome, isn't it? Now in the first example, we did not give it any other arguments, but here we can give it a starting and an ending point. Now as you know, strings are indexed. So Python is an index structure with p occupying index 0 position. So if we are trying to find I, we can give it the locations between which we want it to search. For example, we might want to search for a name in the beginning of a paragraph, and therefore we can say that only look for the first 100 characters and not the rest of the document. Things like that. So let's see how it works. Now we have given it the substring, which is I, and we are trying to find it only between 10 and 20. So like all Python code, 10 is the initial point and it is included. 20 is the final indexing point and it is not included. So it will go from index position 10, and remember they begin at 0. So index position 10, 11, 12, so for until 19, it will not count the 20th position. So if we do this, it's going to look somewhere in the middle of the situation here. So it's going to start somewhere around here, and let's see what it comes up with. We found only one I, and this is the one that we did find. So we have missed out on this I because it happened after the 20th position. We've missed out on this I also because it happened before the 10th position. So Python is only looking somewhere in the middle, 10 to 20 index positions. Now let's look at the find function. Now earlier we were counting the strings. Here we are only trying to find it, and we're trying to find the location of that string. So when we use the find function, Python is going to return the index location where that string is first found, the substring is first found. So if I had run a find function on this string and tried to find I, overall it would have given me the location, index location of this I. Let's take an example and see. We've got a quote, let it be, let it be, let it be 3 times, and then we are trying to find let it. So we know there are 3 occurrences, the first one, the second one, and the third one. All 3 are saying let it. And then let's print out the result. So substring let it, the index location is 11. Okay, it's not the 0th location, it's the 11th location because it did not find this let it. And the reason it didn't find it was that the function, the method is case sensitive. So it's going to skip this because this capital L is not letting it match. We're going to go straight to this position, and here it found the substring, so it returned a function output of 11. Now what happens if you do not find the substring? Well, then in that case it's going to return -1. Now this is a slight nuance here, and we'll see in the next segment how it differs from another function which is very similar. But for the time being, just understand that if a substring is not found using the find function, it's going to return a -1 rather than an error. And finally, we can always use a conditional to see whether the substring was there or not. So this is the code for that. We try to find the substring B, and we know that it is going to be there, so it's there. It doesn't matter how many times it's there. The fact that it is there means that the output is not going to be -1, because that would have been the case had the string not been found. So if it is not -1, this whole conditional becomes true, and we're going to print contains substring B, which is the output that we get over here. Now let's see what happens if we give it starting and ending arguments. It works the same way as in the substring function up here. So for the count function, remember when we had arguments 10 and 20, it was going to look at the space between the index positions 10 and 20 only, and 20 was not included. So the same thing is going to happen over here. Let us try and find a substring, small things, between the index positions 2 and 25. Let's see if we can find it. So it's given us an index position 3, right? So we were able to find it. If we had started it somewhat differently, then it would have returned -1 because it would not have found the whole of the substring here. It would have started off somewhere here and would not have been able to find this. So this is how we work with the find method. Now let us look at the index. The index method is similar to the find method, but the only difference is that if it doesn't find the substring that you're looking for, it's going to return an error. So if we are trying to have a sentence, let's look at this sentence. We got Python programming is fun, and we are trying to look for is fun. Now we know it's going to be there, and if we are going to look for Java, which is not a part of this sentence, we know Java is not going to be there. So let's see how the results come out. So for the first segment, substring is fun at position 19, index 19. So it's given us the index of where the substring is starting. So it's starting here. That means I is occupying the position 19, the index position 19. But for the second part, it's given a error, value error, substring not found. So it's told us it's substring not found. Now this can be a problem if your code is not equipped to handle errors, if you have not accounted for error handling. So in that case, your program is going to stop. So it is better to use find in that situation rather than index. However, both have their own uses. Now let us look at the join function. The join method returns a string created by joining the elements of an iterable by a string separator. So we're going to have to give it 2 arguments. We're going to give, let's do it with an example. Okay, so let's say we've got a list of numbers. This is a list structure, as you know. It's got 4 elements in it, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and you can note that I have put them in single quotes, which means they are not really numbers now, they are strings. And we've got a separator. The separator that we are going to use is a comma with a space. Now if we use the separator and we add join numList to it, so what this is going to do is it's going to take every single element of numList starting from 1, it's going to say 1, then put whatever is in the separator. Then it's going to take the second element because it's going to iterate over this list. So iterating over the list, placing one element from the list, then the separator, then the second element and the separator, and so on. Now this can work with any kind of iterable, so you can have a list or you can even have a tuple here. So let's see how both of these turn out. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 and the spaces in between. Now when it reaches the last one, it's not going to put the separator after the last one. So if there are 4 elements in your list, the separator will be used 3 times. Now let's see join with a set element. So we've got numSet is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. This is exactly the same elements that we have here. So let's try and do this. Let's see what the outcome is. So now you can see something very interesting has happened. We have got 1, 3, 4, 2. So it works fine. We've got the separator in there, but this is not in sequence. This was in sequence 1, 2, 3, 4 like the list we had given or the tuple we had given. But when we are iterating over a set, remember that sets are not ordered, so they do not have index values. Internally, sets are not stored in any kind of order. So the function is going to the join function is just going to pick up one element from the set, whichever comes first, and this need not be in order, and then put the separator after it. So we got this out of order list. If we run it with a large set many number of times, we may get a different output every time. So if we are trying to use join function predictably, it's important that we use it with a tuple or a list or something which is got an order to it. Now the separator need not be a comma and a space. We can use any kind of separator. So I'm going to use a separator dash abc dash with the same numList that we had above here, and let's see what the look is when we run this. Right? So we got 1, then we got the separator, which in this case now becomes dash abc dash, 2 dash abc dash, and so on and so forth. So you can choose a separator that you want. Just remember that the separator comes in between and it will be run n-1 times if you have n number of elements in your iterable. So that's all for this session. We have still some methods to go over. So I'll see you in the next part, strings 2. Take care.